Royal plans. I was reading this. You know, this whole Harry came back, and I'd love you in on this as well, please, Pops. Harry came back. There was all that argument about security. Then we had this sort of undercover visit to Highgrove House, where Camilla was there with a pursed top lip, quite rightly too. And then he and the dreadful one went back to wherever they've come from. Apparently, in the news today, King Charles will offer Prince Harry a room at Buckingham Palace when he returns to the UK in the coming weeks. What does that mean, and why is he coming back? And is he coming on his own, and why should I care?
He's coming for the Well Child Awards. I believe he is coming back by himself. Here's the thing. I recently heard that Prince William made it abundantly clear that Harry and Meghan cannot be offered accommodation at Windsor Castle. And I think that that's important because it tells us that there's not even an inch of thawing happening between the brothers. He doesn't want to risk an unexpected encounter with Harry, especially Meghan, on what he considers his family's home turf. And the reason why I thought that this was so interesting is, do you remember the reports a few years ago that Harry and Meghan had actually asked to live in Windsor Castle?
Yep.
So if they were offered Windsor Castle to stay when they visit in the UK, that would be considered a bit of a win for them, because we know that they personally approached Queen Elizabeth and she said, no, I live in Windsor Castle. I don't want you to live in Windsor Castle. You guys can have Frogmore Cottage. So it's my understanding that Prince William has put his foot down and said, I don't want them anywhere near Windsor. If I stumble upon him, I wouldn't even acknowledge him.
Wow.
Is Buckingham Palace a downgrade? I don't think it's necessarily a downgrade. If this offer is confirmed, he would once again be staying inside one of the most recognizable royal residences in the world.
But you see, why is it that all of me, and I'd love your opinion on this, Poppy, all of me thinks this is all for their brand, this is all about a few clicks. You are both part of a couple who said that the monarchy is racist and everything about it is fundamentally wrong. Why, Poppy, then? And Kins and I have spoken about this so much. Would he take a room within an institution that he hates so much? Because he's a two-faced liar, that's what he is.
I think, like, I mean, I'm not completely across the royal story, but I imagine he probably wants to have some kind of relationship still with the royal family, because I don't know if Harry is 100% correct in his mind that he wants to stay in America forever. So isn't this his way of trying to keep the door open in some respect?
Yeah, but why should we allow him to keep the door open when he slagged everything off about the royal family? Unless he's worked out his wife is a witch and he wants out.
Well, I think that's probably the question that you then have to ask the royal family. Like, are they completely shutting the door on him after everything that's happened? The fact that he's continuing to try and appeal this bizarre, vendetta he has against British media is not really a sign that he's learning and moving on from this stuff, is it?
It's very true, that, isn't it, Kins, to be fair, the whitewash job. It just sits badly with me. It sits better with me if he stood up to his wife and said, this is where I come from, this is what I believe in, you're going to be a part of this, you might not like it. But he ran out of this country and slagged everything off and now seems to want to come back. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, he's using presumably the argument that he wants a relationship with his father, which I guess you'd understand. His father's living with some form of cancer. I just don't see it ending well, sorry.
Well, I think, if you're cynical like me, like you, this creates a very different picture of Harry's relationship with the monarchy than we've seen in the last several years. And that's why some of us, some royal observers, are urging caution. No one seriously suggesting a father shouldn't see his son or his grandchildren, shouldn't see, or his grandchildren. The grandfather shouldn't see his grandchildren. The concern is whether private reconciliation eventually becomes a pathway towards the half-in, half-out arrangement that Harry and Meghan originally wanted. The late Queen rejected that model very clearly, so the palace will hopefully be conscious of keeping family reconciliation separate from any suggestion of an official royal return. However, the optics make it look like Harry's back in the game. If you've got shots of him coming in and out of Buckingham Palace, there are, perception is reality. And the people that threw money at him to disparage his family, like Netflix and Spotify, that's all they're saying. Harry, back in the fold.
I couldn't agree with him more. Now,
For years, William and Harry represented the future of the monarchy. They were known as the brothers who had endured unimaginable loss together after the death of Princess Diana. Whether attending royal engagements, supporting military charities, or laughing together in public, they appeared genuinely close. But behind the scenes, cracks had reportedly been forming long before Harry and Meghan stepped back as senior working royals in 2020. Many royal commentators argue that Harry often struggled with being the spare, the younger brother whose future was always secondary to William's. Harry himself explored those feelings in his memoir, describing years of resentment, frustration, and feeling overlooked within the institution. William, on the other hand, was preparing for a lifetime of duty. As the future king, he reportedly accepted that his life would always come with responsibilities Harry didn't have to shoulder. For years, those different paths seemed manageable, until they weren't. Once Harry and Meghan left royal life and began speaking publicly about their experiences, the disagreements that had once remained behind palace walls became front-page news around the world. And according to many royal observers, that's when William's patience truly began to run out. The betrayals William can't forget. It's one thing to argue behind closed doors. It's another to watch deeply personal family conversations become global headlines. The Oprah interview was the first major turning point. Millions watched as Harry and Meghan spoke openly about their time within the royal family, making allegations that sparked headlines across the world and prompted Buckingham Palace to release its now famous statement acknowledging that recollections may vary. Then came the Netflix documentary. Then came. Each project revealed more private conversations, more family disagreements, and more personal details about William, King Charles, Queen Camilla, and other members of the royal family. Supporters argued Harry was finally telling his truth. Critics argued he was profiting from private family matters. Whatever side people took, one thing became increasingly clear. Trust was disappearing. Royal commentators have repeatedly suggested that William now assumes any private conversation could eventually become public. And if that's how he sees the situation, it's easy to understand why reconciliation has become so difficult. Charles still wants to keep the door open. Despite everything that's happened, King Charles appears to view the situation differently. Recent reports suggest he welcomed Harry back to Britain for a private family meeting at Highgrove, hoping to rebuild at least some level of communication. According to multiple reports and royal commentators, the request was straightforward. No publicity, no photographs, no interviews, just family spending time together. For Charles, who continues balancing his royal duties while undergoing cancer treatment, many believe this wasn't about public relations. It was about being a father. But almost immediately after the reported meeting, Meghan shared a carefully curated collection of family photographs on Instagram. Technically, none of the pictures appeared to come from inside Highgrove. Supporters say that means no promise was broken. Critics disagree. They argue the spirit of the agreement was privacy, and that the timing of the photo release inevitably shifted attention back onto the Sussexes and their relationship with the royal family. Whether intentional or not, the conversation quickly changed from a quiet family reunion to another global debate. Why William reportedly wants no part of it. Many royal commentators believe moments like these explain why William has chosen to keep his distance. From his perspective, every attempt at rebuilding bridges seems to end with another headline, another documentary, another interview, another controversy. William has reportedly become increasingly protective, not just of himself, but of Catherine and their 3 children. As the future king, he also carries responsibility for protecting the institution he will eventually lead. Several royal experts have suggested that William now believes stability matters more than reconciliation. That doesn't necessarily mean he no longer loves his brother. It may simply mean he no longer believes the relationship can function the way it once did. And for many people watching from the outside, that's perhaps the saddest part of the entire story. Has Harry's reputation made things worse? Harry has often been described as the more rebellious royal. Over the years, there were youthful mistakes, headline-making scandals, legal battles with British newspapers, disputes over security arrangements, and repeated public criticism of the institution he was born into. Some people sympathise with him. Others believe he has created many of his own problems. More recently, attention has also turned toward reports surrounding his ongoing legal battles and the substantial legal costs he could face following his defeat against associated newspapers. At the same time, questions continue to circulate about the Sussexes' commercial future, their Netflix partnership, and whether maintaining strong royal connections remains essential to their global brand. None of these reports prove motive, but together they have fueled growing speculation that every public appearance, interview, or carefully timed photo release is now viewed through a completely different lens. Is Charles making a mistake? This is where opinion becomes deeply divided. Some believe King Charles deserves enormous credit for continuing to reach out to his youngest son, despite everything that's happened. After all, Harry is still family. Many parents would never completely close the door on one of their children. Others argue that continuing to forgive Harry sends the wrong message, not only to William, but to the rest of the royal family. They believe repeated attempts at reconciliation have produced little progress while creating new controversies almost every time. Supporters see compassion. Critics see misplaced optimism. Only time will reveal which view is correct. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part of this story isn't the interviews, the books, or even the headlines. It's watching two brothers who once seemed inseparable become strangers. One is preparing to become king. The other is building a life thousands of miles away in California. Both insist they're doing what's best for themselves and their families. But somewhere along the way, the bond that once defined them appears to have been replaced by distance, mistrust, and silence. Whether that relationship can ever be repaired remains one of the biggest unanswered questions surrounding the royal family. What do you think? Has Prince William done the right thing by stepping away from Harry, or should family always come before everything else? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more royal news, analysis, and behind-the-scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.